the moment that we have all the information at our fingertips and we want to give it to you here on episode 1 of Lake Talk, dipping our toes in the pond. I am Joseph Voice hanging out with Zen Zero, Bub, and Brave. And we're going to be bringing you guys some hot takes. We're going to be bringing you guys some good information. We're going to be talking about a lot of different topics throughout this podcast. And I'm just really excited to be here to know that, we're a little over a year into the making of everything, about a year and a half into the making of everything. And we are now at this point here where we are unleashing our podcast. We are bringing you guys all that good information you guys have been wanting. We're opening up the doors, if we must say. We're unlocking some of the vaults to give you guys some of that, some of that good is what we'll call it. So with that being said, I know one of our first topics that we're planning on talking about today, I know they just ended their league play. They just finished off the playoffs, and that is CRL. There's a lot going on there. A lot of these teams compete here at Great Lakes, but some of them don't. And with that being said, we got to talk about some of these teams that aren't in our conference or aren't a part of our regions that have stunted the growth of some of our teams and haven't quite allowed them to reach as far as we had hoped. But with that being said, Bub, talk to me a little bit about the CRL, some of the things that have been going on, and just give it to us real quick.
Sure. So, I'm going to go pretty much through the teams that made it into the East, the teams that made it to West. We'll talk about Nationals. We'll talk about teams that did well, teams that may have disappointed. We'll talk about, whatever we want to talk about realistically, but we'll jump right and we'll talk about East. So, for those who don't know how CRL works, they do 2 qualifiers. 8 teams make it through each qualifier for each region. So 16 teams per region. It divides down to, I believe this year they did 12 total teams, or at least this semester, 6 teams per conference. So within the East, you had Fisher College, West Virginia, Northwood Blue, Northwood White, the usuals. You also had Kennesaw State, Ole Miss, Akron Blue, the St. Clair Saints, who they have some players who play here, Ball State University, Illinois State, Fisher Friends, which I think they actually end up going under Fisher Black by the time things were all said and done. Oakland University, another Great Lakes resident. Rochester University, a Great Lakes resident. Nichols College, Akron Gold, and Bruton Parker. And in the East, you ended up coming away with Northwood Blue, West Virginia, Fisher College, Akron, Northwood White, and Ball State. As for our friends in St. Clair, they ended the season at 3-12. Oakland had a semester not to remember. One to forget, rather, at 0-15. Rochester went 3-12. So we had three of our buddies make it. It wasn't the greatest showing this semester. We'll hope to see them turn it around going into next semester. Taking a trip out west, you had St. Edward's, Columbia College, both of them, Navy and Silver, residents of Midwest CRL, but playing under Great Lakes CRL for the fall. Maryville University, Boise State, Oklahoma Christian, LCU, Borgos MTY, Missouri University, UT Arlington, Kansas Blue, another resident within our league, Colorado State, San Diego State, UNLV, Missouri, and Dragones, Carolina, which I believe that is a Mexican league team. I don't remember exactly where they came from.
There was 2 Mexican teams in the West, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's kind of cool to see teams that are not in the United States. We see St. Clair often from Canada representing in the East, and it's cool
the home and native land, man.
Yes, the home and native land. Indeed. So you take a look at how league play ended up going. Boise State 15-0, same as Northwood did out east. St. Edward's, Columbia College made it, Maryville made it, Oklahoma Christian, and Columbia College. Columbia Silver, rather. Columbia Navy went 11-4. Columbia Silver went 9-6. Kansas Blue did not make it. They ended up going 4-11. CRL's a learning experience for a lot of schools. It's really the first major level of competition for a lot of these people who have never competed in RLCS. For example, Zen, I know you have some experience with some of those teams, some of those players that I'd mentioned before. Yeah. It's a hard league. It is the top of the collegiate scene for a reason.
Yeah, Yeah, I have to agree with you. I mean, really, really noticed it this season that, it really comes down to who has the ice in their veins, because they're all at that next level. They all can win, day of or a series. Anybody can beat anybody. But yeah, it was pretty cutthroat this season. I was excited to see it.
It was definitely significantly tougher, especially in the East. I'm not too familiar with West, but I know in the East it got so much tighter than it has been in a long, long time, for sure.
Yeah, and I think Rochester and Oakland's record really go to show it, because we know, especially Rochester, they're a very, very strong team. So for them to, finish under that 500 mark, and I got to cast, a good few of those, and I tell you, they were coming down to 1-goal games, one after the other, and they just continued to be the tiniest step behind. And, that kind of set the precedence, and I think it, made it tougher going through the season. But yeah, it was insane, the, minuscule amount that separated these teams, but that was enough between, making that top 12 and, going under 500.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think of the CRL having pros? I mean, if you look at it from 2 years ago to a year ago, you would look at it as, okay, if you had say one SSL, right, and your two backup teammates were GC2, GC3, right, you could make it into the CRL. But now, like, you look at it, you at least have to have like high-end SSLs to even make it anywhere that you want to go, because it almost looks like the scene is getting a little bit flooded with professional players. I mean, if you look at it, like, correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, I know you're kind of our expert here on it, but West Virginia, Ball State, Northwood, white and blue. And then if you look, I believe the West has some teams as well. I mean, those teams are kind of now at the top of the margin, at the top of the, mountain. Is it affecting CRL in the entirety, or is it making it something more competitive, or what is everyone's kind of take on that? I mean, like, are we in the right part of CRL, or are we kind of going in the wrong direction?
It's a very, very tough question, because it's, it's not typical, right? Because if you look at traditional sports, a 15-year-old isn't going to the NBA, right? A 15-year-old isn't going to the NFL. So there's no, okay, this guy's already been pro for 3 years and now he's eligible for college, so it's kind of weird, right? And part of me wants to say, no, I don't think once a player has went pro, they should be able to take a step back and play in college. A large part of me says I don't think they should be able to, certainly simultaneously play. But then another part of me says, hey, these kids are able to get an education for free with this, right? So what would happen if they change those rules? Would RLCS be less competitive because they say, hey, I have to look at my future and know, yeah, I could go get a bag now. Yeah, I could go play pro now, but then I'm not eligible for college when I'm, time to go to college, and that's scholarships, all that. So it's a lot deeper than,
I mean, even on top of that as well, like, I come from a traditional background, and I had the opportunity that, like, do I go NCAA route or do I go professional amateur junior A? I mean, I had to kind of pick that route. And at that time, I was also 16, 17 at the time. And, like, I had to make that decision. Like, okay, do I want potentially a scholarship, or do I want a fast track to the pros, right? Which way do I want to go? Do I want that education? So I think also too, like, a little bit of this CRL needs to find that path of, do we make them to make that decision? Like, hey, I want to spend a little more time developing myself into this better player, and I am that professional caliber, or I am that bubble pro that could make the push, but I want to get my education first.
I kind of have a little bit of I want to budge in here real quick.
Sure.
So,
go for it.
For me personally, the way I look at it is you cannot punish somebody for aspiring to be good at a young age. If they get to that professional level because they're aspiring to be a good player, and then it just so happens that they also have college ambition and they want to continue, like, with education and all these other stuff, and they get the chance to play on their college team and perform and put with all the work that they put into it with their team and all that, if anything, I think what it does is it drives the competition more at the CRL level personally. because everybody's going to be aspiring to be a professional. Let's be honest. That's why they're playing at this high level, because they want to be more than what it is. But they also might want an education. They also might want this or that. We're talking about scholarships. We're talking about a lot of this other stuff. You know, a free ride, that's not a conversation we could ever have, or even like a nice big chunk of your trip being paid for wasn't a conversation we could have let's say, we'll just go 5 years ago, not even 10 years ago. 5 years ago, it still wasn't really a major topic of saying, hey, we'll give you a full ride, or hey, we'll pay for half your schooling. If you come to our school, we'll take care of you, but you got to play for us and you got to compete. Remember, they still have to hold up to their clause of that part. They have to still compete. They still have to be a top contender. They can't just take a day off. They can't pretend like that's not a big major priority for them just as much, because the school is paying boatloads of money to have them there, and they need to hold up to that. And we're starting to see this line across CRL that I'm noticing, where players are taking advantage of this and being very disrespectful in retort. You have players that are jumping out mid-game and they're DCing, or they're just acting a fool in chat and just saying these nasty things. Like, we can still see what you're saying. Even if the crowd can't, we can still see what you're saying, and you're going to be held accountable. So you're starting to see a lot of these players trying to take advantage of that, and you're going to see a lot of these universities starting to tear it apart and kind of reanalyze, because they're giving a lot of money towards them. If these players aren't going to hold up to their end of the agreement, professional, not professional, whatever it is, then what's the point anyways? I think that's the bigger conversation is, it comes down to, can you still do it all at once if you're still kind of playing between the two? Or if you fell out of that pro level and now you're playing more at the collegiate level, can you still own up to everything that you said you were going to? I think that's where it kind of lies for me.
Yeah. And I like that. And to rebuttal quickly, just the first part that you say where, you think that it should be fine. So, I mean, how is that different than, let's say, LeBron James went into the NBA at 18? At 20, he says, you know what? I'm going to go win 4 national titles real quick in college while I'm in the NBA. And you see what I'm saying? It's kind of the same exact thing.
I got you. I got you. Once they give esports, it is though. It is, because until they give esports the recognition that it deserves as an actual sport, then we can set these hard guidelines, and we can put all these regulations in place that make it where this is exact. And guess what? Players can't be trading like mid-season constantly in RLCS. You won't be seeing that happening no more. So there will be more regulations across the board, because it has to go from the top down. It can't just be, well, what about the collegiate level? It has to come from the top down, and we got to reanalyze everything at that point.
If it has to come from the top down, I mean, who's making that change though?
There has to be a committee put in place.
Well, yeah, but the RLCS doesn't seem to be looking like they're making that transition, that change. They don't seem to be wanting to make that. They seem okay. They seem settled. They seem fine with it. I mean, right now we have a break hiatus with the RLCS. I mean, it's not active right now. There's a longer break than normal. So maybe they are making those changes at the level. But what we can see as outsiders looking in, there's no change there. And I mean, kind of giving us a little shout out here about what we do outside of the Lake Talk podcast that we just started up. But Great Lakes CRL, I mean, we're doing that. We're kind of forming that community. Like, hey, like, we want you to grow, develop, get better, and do what you want to do. But once you cross that threshold of, I'm no longer amateur, I've made it to the pro scene. Right. That's your cutoff. Like, hey, now you are done with competing at the college level. You can still be at your school. You can still do the stuff you want with your school, like whatever. Like, a lot of time, like you look at like Lion Blaze, right? He does so much for the university, brings so much publicity back to the university, but he doesn't necessarily need to play at a level of CRL. He could just be the guy that's like, oh, Lion Blaze, he plays in RLCS. He goes to Northwood. That's going to make me, because like now I can learn from Lion Blaze instead of Lion Blaze just kind of coming in and taking all the money he wants because he's that much better of a player. So it's like, who's the person making that? And I agree with you. Who's the person making that top down? Like, it has to come from the top, or it has to come from an outside source and kind of mandating it. Like, this should be the standard.
I mean, based off of kind of what you're saying to me, it almost sounds like if a player were to hit that professional threshold, the only way they could be like really intertwined with the university is if they were like a shoutcast, if they were like it wouldn't be like a player coach. You'd be more of just like, you'd be an ex-player that's a coach now, but you'd be like a GA or whatever they're called.
Graduate assistant.
Graduate assistant kind of thing, but you'd have to go and still get your scholarship and all this other stuff. They'd still have to work to get you to where you need to be able to be in that position. But I think, like I said, it has to definitely come from the top down, because we can see that there's definitely a void. We can definitely see that there's holes. And at the end of the day, even RLCS's ruling isn't quite firm enough at times, I feel, with some of their things like you're saying, and it needs to come from the top down. If they don't start to change it, the thing is, I feel like the community dictates how almost all professional fields work. If we are very unhappy with someone, we speak. I mean, let's take Sonic. I'm going to take Sonic for example. Just a key example of Sonic. You guys remember during COVID when they were like, "Hey, we're releasing Sonic the Hedgehog," and they're like, "Here's what he looks like," and everybody, there was a hailstorm of this is not what Sonic looks like. You guys are not releasing this movie in its current form, and we're not going to go watch it. To the point where Hollywood was like, guys, they're not bluffing. They are not bluffing right now. And guess what? They remade it and spent hundreds of thousands, million, whatever, how much money they had to spend to reanimate him to look more like what he was supposed to. And I mean, that's just something simple. But when people have a lot of passion for something, they care about something a lot, Rocket League, esports, any of that kind of stuff. And it's not just Rocket League. Let's just throw that out there. It's not just Rocket League. It's across a lot of these esports titles, regardless. So it has to come from the top down. There has to be some type of like true collegiate committee that can make a true dictation, and they have to be somehow in partnership or tandem with the professional league, so there's an understanding of how things transition, how things are allowed to transition or work in between, so there is no gray lines anymore, and it's written out. In most of these actual traditional sports, there really isn't many gray lines. Coaches might find ways to kind of bend the rule a little bit, but guess what? By the end of the year, they're changing the rule to then dictate being ruled differently. Craig Counsell, there was literally a Craig Counsell rule put into effect where the man would do matchup pitching. You're a lefty. I have a guy who's going to be able to dominate against you. You pitch against that one guy, then I'm taking on and bringing in a new guy. Now you have to pitch minimum of, I believe it's 3 batters before you can even make a pitching change. So they start to notice these holes and they start to change it and correct it as they go. But unless you acknowledge that there's a problem, nothing's going to be changed. There's going to constantly be a void. There's going to be constantly a misbalance going on. And I just feel like at the end of the day, we're just not going to have that center of balance.
I was going to say, I think at the colleges, I mean, if you look on Twitter, all the college coaches are saying that there needs to be some type of change. I mean, you see it more from the colleges that can't recruit the professional players. The coaches that are pushing for it have the professional players or have them up and coming, but the vast majority is like, let's push them out. But like, to your point where you're saying like they need to make the change if something's happening at the professional level, but like nothing's affecting the pros at that professional level. And it doesn't even seem like they're really acknowledging that they're diminishing and hurting the development forward. They're looking at themselves and saying, okay, like we're set, we're good, we kind of have everything we need, let's just keep chugging along. But they're not looking down the pipeline of like what's coming up before. It's like, we don't have a development league, we don't have anything that's feeding this. Like there's nothing. Like the kids are either going to be good or they're going to be bad, and that's kind of it. They're going to be good people, they're going to be bad people. There's no one bringing them up as the like standard of citizens that they should be, or sportsmanship or anything like that. I mean, Daniel for Space Station Gaming that went to version 1, I mean, he started at what, 15 years old?
Yep.
And now he's kind of 16, 17, I don't know how many years has passed. Wow. 16, 17.
It's been like a year or so now.
He's still super young, right? And what if he's now like at the end of the day, he's like, oh, I want to go to college.
Fact
like,
check, Daniel is 16 years old.
You know, it's like, what should be the ruling on that? The kid didn't even make it out of high school yet, and he's I don't even think he made it out of middle school, and he's competing for like a lot of money. And he just went literally to, where did they go for Gamers 8 again? And he won that.
Arabia, I think?
Yeah, Saudi Arabia. He won that. I mean, how much money was that? And he's like going all around the world. So it's like, where do you like draw the line of like, hey, Daniel needed to either make his decision, because we need development. We need a league that develops, that grows people. By him making that decision, he's already grown. He's developed. He decided that at that moment in time, I am 15 years old. I am old enough and mature enough to make the decision to sign this massive contract with these different organizations. I don't need to develop myself anymore. I am smart enough to do what I want to do. He did not pick that education pathway like a traditional athlete would. That's like, oh, you know, I'm good, but I'm not good enough. Like I should develop myself. Like the MLB, how many burnouts do you find that wanted to go quickly into the MLB that just, it didn't work out, and now they can't go backtracking to play college.
Their knees are shot, their elbows are shot. They got all these different problems and issues to try to jump the gun.
That's the big difference. That's the big difference to me. This conversation, you know, really highlights the difference, because you got to think there's multiple things. 15-year-olds usually can't go pro because they're not big enough. You know, they're not strong enough. They're not fast enough. That's not a problem with esports. But on the flip side, pro teams, they don't want you playing in college where you could break your ankle or whatever. You don't have to worry about injuries in esports. You see what I'm saying? So this really highlights the differences and maybe why the pros don't care, or like the RLCS doesn't care as much, because it's not like Daniel's going to go out, twist his ankle playing CRL or live.
Yeah, and if he wants to go back, I mean, they don't really have a care because they left his league. Just go back or play it jointly because you can. It's online. But Bub, what? Before I think Joe, you're trying to move it on to the next topic.
Yeah, we're gonna transition. I want to get Bub's take real quick.
Yeah, I mean, Bub's been sitting here for like at least 10 minutes. He introduced himself, and then we just kind of put him into the corner.
Listen,
he unleashed Pandora's box.
Like, we'll spend a little extra minutes here. What's your opinion on this whole take, Bub? I mean, I want to hear from you.
I'm letting content develop itself right in front of me. This is fantastic. I'm kind of like a mix between everything you guys said. Like, from a player's perspective, absolutely 100%. You have this skill that is in demand. You can get your education discounted as a result of providing that skill set. 100% go for it. As a collegiate organizer and part of Great Lakes Esports and a founder of Great Lakes CRL, it's really, really hard to sit there in good faith and know, yeah, this player is here just to just to take money. And I'm not saying that all pros do that. There are certainly not pros that that come in and they're just trying to win money and cash out as quick as possible. Those pros typically don't make it in CRL, and I think that's become less and less of a prominent situation in CRL compared to what it used to be. Not even 2 years ago.
CRL, the money's on the front end, it's not on the back end. You get your tuition's getting paid for, so you don't get to see that money like in actual.
Yeah. So and CRL has made adjustments. I know there's rulings for players to maintain a minimum GPA now and full-time status. I mean, they are implementing things bit by bit, but I still think we're at a point right now within, especially Rocket League specifically, where the collegiate scene is it is still littered with players like Lion Blaze, for example. And I don't mean any disrespect to Lion Blaze at all. He's a fantastic player. He's done wonders for Northwood. What he has done for CRL and brought the popularity to this league, you just can't understate how important he has been. But for example, I'm just gonna throw a name out there. Let's say, I don't know. Let's use your example, Brave. Daniel decides, yeah, I'll go to college and I'll farm CRL and I'll take all that money and go. There's a difference between that and a pro going, and someone coming in and going, I want to play in this, get an education while I'm doing this, and develop myself further further down the line. I'm also of the opinion that the minimum age to compete in RLCS should be raised. Brave mentioned that a little bit earlier, where
I agree.
Where a 15-year-old, I think it's 15 right now. Once you turn 15, you're eligible
That's
to
young.
sign a multi-year, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, I have no idea what the number even is, size contract, and you're locked into that. I mean, that is a legally binding document, and you're 15 years old. Some of them don't necessarily know how to write a resume yet. And I don't want to discount one way or the other and say just because you can't do this, you shouldn't do this. But I'm not the only player in the community. I know Lawler in his streams, he's talked about it previously, where he thinks the age gap should be, or the minimum age should be increased for maturity reasons such as that. Apparently 17. Jack has said the same thing. So I think college at the end of the day should be a developmental league for players to take that step to go pro, and not a place where pros and college students can intermingle and play in one space. I think they should be separate.
It kind of sounds like we're all pretty much on the same page. Is we think there needs to be some type of change in some type of form or fashion that will create a better development area for really the youth to go to pro, instead of it being kind of backwards, where youth can go pro and then they go to college. It should be kind of reversed back to traditional. But Tantalus had a question in chat there, and he says, and could these players who were pro then go to college, could they still be in a different role like administration or coaching? And
that's kind of what I had talked about.
Yeah, I think that's like perfect for them to come back and pick up a role of being a coach or an administrator, or like helping out, blah, 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 like all of that. Like, that's great, right?
Perfect example, Too Fast at Ball State. He was a collegiate player for several years. He's now the coach for Ball State University.
True. I mean, so all in all, I think we can agree if there's one word to sum up that first segment, it's definitely change. And with that being said, we got some change coming ahead of us that we need to talk about because there's some serious changes happening in Rocket League, and it doesn't seem like the community is too happy about it. Or are they? I'm not sure. We're going to get some takes from some of our panel here. We want to get some input from you guys in chat as well, because we're going to be talking about RL trading. Rocket League trading is going away as of December 5th. So not only do we have our major coming up on the 2nd, but 3 days after you get to see all that amazing Rocket League, they're going to take away trading from you. And I know, Zen, you had quite a few things you wanted to say about this. So I'm going to send it over to you first so you can kind of lay it out for us.
Sure, absolutely. And you know, number one, I think the everybody's most important question on mine is how is this going to affect the community as a whole? And I'll give my quick opinion and then kind of, I'm actually going to kind of segue into the first 2 points I had, which also how's it going to affect streamers and content creators, and then see what you guys think. So, you know, the community as a whole, I don't think it's going to affect it quite as much as we wish it did, right? And I think that's why, though the vocal minority was very, very vocal, you know, especially on Twitter, we didn't even get a response from them about it. And we're not seeing crazy differences in the player numbers and all that. So I think that, you know, the minority that do trade and focus on trading, it is going to affect quite a bit. But for the most part, not going to have that huge of an effect on the community, which I honestly hate to say. And I, of course, could be wrong. But I think it's going to have, you know, huge effects on certain streamers and content creators. You know, there's a lot of content creators that they're in everything about their content is around it, whether it's giveaways, whether it's tournaments for credits, or you know, a mix of the two. So I think we're going to see some streamers and content creators have to complete, and they might have been doing this 5 years, you know, even longer, right? So yeah, we're going to see it really affect them, but as the community as a whole, I don't think it's going to affect it quite as much as, again, the Twitter Rocket League community would, and me included, would make you think.
I mean,
honest. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
No, I just want to say, like, for me in particular, so like I'm an educator, and for me, being able to like reward my students with like just, hey, I got a bunch of stuff in my inventory, let me just hook you up with something, like, yeah, remove all the other stuff, because I have other friends. I am a content creator, but I have other friends that have just like given me stuff with the idealistics of I'm going to be passing this stuff forward, and now it's all just going to be locked onto my account. I can't pay it forward. I can't just like reward them with simple little things. And I mean, I'm also a guy that I got my own creator code, and I'm not the one who avidly pushes it in, you know, in my classroom, because I don't think that's necessarily the place to be pushing it necessarily, because we're in the classroom. So like for me, I can understand why it could be beneficial, because I'm like, oh, use my creator code, I can make more money, then give back to the community in different ways. But at the same time, it's like with them removing trading, I almost feel like they should up the amount that a content creator can get now, from like 5% to maybe even like 10%, because there's less opportunity for us to then like utilize making money otherwise, or doing stuff otherwise, or growing our community by utilizing these things. I feel like they took a lot from us without giving back. And I understand, especially having a marketing background, a lot of it comes down to licensing. You know, they have a Porsche that is literally, it was one of the giveaways for just the pass, the Rocket Pass. That's tied to Porsche, you know? Unlike the McLaren, unlike the Bugatti, unlike all these other ones that you had to specially buy for that license, I can understand why that car in particular, like, well, maybe we can't just be free willingly tossing that around, because we had to pay Porsche and da-da-da-da. And maybe there's extra stuff that comes into it, where if that car got moved or something like that, because a license got moved to somebody else, maybe there's a small increment of money that gets adjusted with that. I don't know. They could be losing money on the back end that we're not certain of, but not giving us much reason, and just being like, well, we're trying to fall in form with everything else that we're doing. And I understand Fortnite was your game. Fortnite was the game that you did all this licensing. And I say it all the time. Epic Fortnite is very similar to that of what the Beatles did when they revolutionized music. They came in, they saw a way that they could majorly impact gaming through a marketing standpoint by getting all of these major licenses with Disney, with all these big housings. and they were able to bring that to you and give that to you in a much different way, where that's the big thing that kept drawing people back to Fortnite is, oh, I can get this new skin. I can be Rick and Morty. I can be this. I can be that. And it got people excited to keep on wanting to come back. So they're trying to keep it where that money flow is staying there. They're making their money. And maybe it's because they're wanting to delve into their next venture. They saw that they made a lot of money here, and now they want to make a lot of money there. But I feel like it's almost too late. Like, you guys should have made this decision when you guys bought the game and made it free to play. You guys should just made the decision at that point. No trading anymore. That's it. Because it would have just made sense. That's it. But now you guys waited years after the fact, and you guys like, nah, now we're going to do it. Now we're going to change it. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it on over to one of you guys, but I don't really like the current stance of it.
I honestly, looking at it, like, and it's actually funny because Kappa just hopped in the chat here, and what I was going to talk about is kind of like related to Kappa. So, when I first joined Rochester, or I was planning on joining Rochester, Kappa and I were supposed to be teammates, but they transferred. I don't hold him against that. That's okay. Everyone to each their own.
He's just saying it to be nice.
But I really wanted a certain decal for the Fennec, which would help me build the French Fennec. And there was a website that allowed Kappa to go on to that he was familiar with, where he could literally just buy the decal and then had it and then trade it to me and then done. That was it. Like, you're taking away an entire economy.
Yeah.
And I get why they're doing it, because yes, they're missing out on so much money with that economy. That's literally, you could just call it the black market. They're missing out on so much revenue, but why remove it in entirety and just shut it down? Why not just say, hey, we see what you're doing. We don't really like it. But how about you give us 10 to 15% on commission of everything you do, because you're using our game to make this gains and this money that's coming in. And then we'll leave trading open so everyone can still do what they want to do. And yes, sure, there'll be inflation now in the Rocket League economy because they're taking their little split, their 10 to 15%. But we still get trading. We still get everything that everyone loves. We still allow content creators to have their codes, to be able to trade stuff, to do their giveaways, to do whatever they want. And it may cost a little extra, but I'm sure that's a way better situation than just removing everything in entirety and being like, okay, you can't do it now. December 5th, make sure you trade away all of your alpha boost, or else it's literally just locked in your account forever and it's worth $0 and you paid $3,000 or $5,000 or whatever it costs to buy alpha boost. And it's just like, man.
Everybody's after the white hat even more, though. You know it.
I do want to take a moment. Actually, go ahead, JTV. Finish what you want to say, and I'll pick up.
The white hat, the glitch white hat, where if you find a glitch in the
game. I do want to take a moment. I want to preface with this. I am not defending Epic's decision to remove trading. I think it's incredibly anti-player, and I think it's the most, like, I'm trying to think how to describe it. It's the biggest punch in the face they could have given to a base where the cosmetics and trading itself built up a massive part of the community. And now they're stripping away the fundamental pillar that built up that sector of their community. However, I do want to take a moment and just say that they're Epic hasn't officially said anything, as far as I'm aware, Zen.
No.
They have not said anything. There are rumors out there, and I'm not going to give those rumors the time of day. I'm not going to say the rumors that you see on Twitter, because it is exactly that. None of it's proven. It's a rumor. Whatever happens, whatever Epic decides at the end of the day, they'll eventually have to come out and make the decision. But there are factors at play that we are not aware of. Epic is 100%. This was something they wanted to do. They have a reason to do it. Should they said their reason when they said they were removing trading? I think so. I think at least giving the community some form of closure as to why things are happening, instead of finding out this might be the reason why, or this might be the reason why through outside sources.
Not a vague reason like they gave.
Yeah,
you'd have an uproar if all of a sudden you just logged in and you literally got shut down from trading and you had all this money stuck in here. They'd be like, what the, I hate, and you get so many emails.
Yeah, I mean, there are things that we don't know that are going on with Epic right now. And again, I'm not defending Epic. They're a business and they're going to do whatever they think is best for them at the end of the day. It is their game. We are their community. But
I mean, somebody took a...
Go ahead.
Somebody took a hot take today and told me that they think that the next step is that Rocket League is no longer going to be an independent game. It's going to be a part of Fortnite.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope I think that would
I
ruin
hope to God no.
We can all sit here and hope no. Some might not care, some do. I mean, that's why we all are a part of this community. The fact that we're all out here talking about it means we care enough. So there's at least that Epic can look back on and say, hey, the community does care. But I think if all of us write an email, there's 14 of us. I think if all of us write an email, we'll have the consensus. Oh, I'm sure. Sure.
Majority rules.
Yep.
Yes, we can make a consensus. Everyone just put an email in.
Long story short, at the end of my rant, thanks for coming to my TED Talk, by the way. There was a certain amount of respect that Epic owed the community, and they disrespected the daylights out of it by not giving anything the time of day that it deserves.
Yeah. I fully agree with you, and that's a perfect segue. That was kind of my next point was bringing up Epic's non-response, and to be blunt, that's what it is. They had a crazy uproar about it. Everybody was mad, even people that don't trade much were very mad about it. And, we didn't see anything. And then in comparison, they just made an update on Fortnite that, I don't know if you guys know too much about it, but you can't use certain skins in creative mode. And there was an uproar about it. It took them 3 days. 3 days.
Yep.
And they came out and said, hey, sorry, guys. We know this is, we see what you're saying and we're sorry and acknowledge it. And we had nothing. And this has been weeks now, if not over a month. So that scares me a little bit and kind of shows me, well, where their priorities lie. But we already kind of knew that, and I do want to add, I meant to add when you were talking, Brave, was I think that if they just made credits non-tradable, say, hey, you guys can trade items all that you want, but you can't trade credits. I think that could be.
What if it comes down? What if it comes down to like the legality of things, and like a lot of times when there's legal battles or legal fights and things like that, it comes down to like you have to stay hush. You can't talk about it. True. You can't bring it to the forefront because you're still fighting that battle on the back end. And until you have an answer, you can't really give an answer. Maybe there's companies that came after them and said, hey, we gave you this, and now you're just kind of throwing it around, letting them do whatever with it. And I mean, I don't know, but I know a lot of times when it does come down to a legal battle, you can't sit there and talk about it.
That's true. Yeah. But I think that you could say, hey, some items, or, if you can't, I don't see how you couldn't at least say, due to licensing issues, some items are going to be untradeable after December 5th or something along those lines, instead of just, doing it completely away with it, all around. But I will add as well, what are the potential upsides to it? One, will this, I think we all agree we did it for the money that they were losing out on, right? So that's a potential upside, as if they see considerably more profit from Rocket League. What does that mean? Does that mean they prioritize
better licenses? Better licenses.
I mean, I can.
They got us Lightning McQueen. I'm happy with that. I'm just gonna say.
Lightning McQueen.
He said, "I'm just gonna say."
Listen, Lightning McQueen. It's been, I don't know.
I swear I didn't sell out.
For 1, 2, carry the 5, 8 years. It's 8 years overdue. But yeah, that's kind of what I meant. You guys were talking about, the legality. There are things at play that we do not know about when it comes to stuff like that. And I think the primary issue with the community, and why this, not only with it being a fundamental part of the game that is being removed, but Psyonix's pre-Epic Games merger or acquisition, I don't remember. I think it was technically an acquisition. They already had a reputation for not having fantastic communication. So I think some of the carryover from that doesn't help the case. And I think that's where players who maybe would not have been frustrated otherwise have now boiled over as well and joined that big group that, is up in arms and, I won't buy items in the shop anymore, or I won't support this, or I'm done with the game entirely.
You're not going to sell out? I sell out for Lightning McQueen every day. I mean, Lightning McQueen costed more than the game did when you had to buy it.
Yeah.
Like Lightning McQueen, like I think Rocket League was like what, $8 or something. Yeah, $20, and it costed $25 to get Lightning McQueen. But I bought that immediately. It came out, and I was telling everybody before it comes out, I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to do it. No, me, never. Won't buy it.
I had a conversation with Thanos Eternal months ago, and we were talking about what is one car that you would like to see in Rocket League that is actually like realistic. Well, he pulled out. He wanted to see the Jetta, specifically the Jetta that was in Fast and the Furious, one that Jesse drove.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I can understand that, but I don't see them backtracking to add that vehicle now because they've added all these new vehicles from Fast and Furious. But I was like, the one that I haven't seen that I see very plausible, very likely, it's already under Disney's wheelhouse. I was like, Lightning McQueen. And then they gave it to us. And I was happy. I'm just gonna say, but I'm not happy with the fact that we're losing trading. I'm still not happy.
There's so much they could do that they could just. There's ways that they could still make money if they wanted to make money on it. But quickly, I just want to say I want to give a shout out to Kappa and Luca for the subscriptions. Thank you very much. It does help us to keep going what we're doing, and it very much appreciated. But back to what we were talking about.
I just wanted to add there could be other potential upsides. We talked a little bit about rumors earlier, and of course, Unreal Engine 5. That's a big thing, right?
2-year-long.
What is that? Yeah, I'm assuming it's just never coming. But that's a potential upside. Potential upsides if they make more profit from it, they put more back into it. But I have to say, I didn't like today. Today they did put out an update. I think there's some cool things in that update, except that drop shot's not going to be in the competitive queue next season. I know people are pretty upset about that.
You broke my heart that first day. I thought you were telling me they were going to remove drop shot. I almost flipped my desk and just left the podcast.
But they are for next season. It won't be there next season. It's as it seems.
Keep that desk right where it is. It's gone 50% of the time now. It's only 50% as available as it used to be.
I still have it in custom matches, Bob. You can't take it from me.
No, they can't. No, they can't.
Listen, custom matches.
Listen, they can't take Heat Seeker from me. They can't take Drop Shot from you. Okay?
You can't do this to me, man. You can't do this to me.
Well,
I was almost a GC.
That's what somebody else was talking about, grinding to SSL. But I will say, it kind of seems that they brought up the smurfing issue because they have been pretty silent about that for a long time. That was almost their cover of, we're not going to bring up trading, because the last paragraph about today's update said, hey, we're going to start being better about feedback, community feedback, and one of the examples was smurfing. And I'm like, man, you guys really aren't going to say a word about trading still, and I think that saying, hey, we're going to do something about smurfing is kind of the way of like, well, we're going to give you this one, but again, I'll say what I think, a couple potential upsides, then I'll see what you guys can think. But yeah, if they make more money, they might take it more serious, put back into it. And the big problem with boycotting the item shop is we have no other competitor. It's not like COD where you can say, we're going to play Battlefield, right? There's no other Rocket League. So to me, we don't really have a choice. And yeah, if we see good money, it comes back into the game. And yeah, Unreal Engine 5 hopefully does come, and that can make it a little easier to transition. But I'm curious what you guys think, what upsides there could be, and how you feel about those upsides.
I mean, I can appreciate the sentiment about, better about community feedback. And I do think they mean that. I genuinely do. My opinion with the whole trading thing is that is an Epic Games decision, not a Psyonix one.
Yeah.
And I think there are some things that Psyonix just cannot control. And I think just from tweets you saw that were semi-cryptic, semi-not from Devin Connors, it kind of alluded to the fact that they weren't happy with it either, but obviously they can't say one way or the other because that's their boss. But I do think that they're genuine when they're talking about community feedback, and the things that they are bringing out with this update are things the community wanted. Maybe not drop shot. I think that has more to do with a visual appeal and making certain menus look better.
I agree with the Smurf aspect. There's a lot of Smurfs that just go and they'll just run drop shot.
But I do think they genuinely mean it when they're saying they're going to try and put a larger focus in with community feedback. I'm going to take a second. Thank you, Skies. I just saw that.
Yes, thank you, Skies. Much appreciated.
Yeah. Every subscription, every follow, everything. guys do.
Have they all been prime
horn.
subs today? You guys are amazing.
Yeah.
We need like an air horn or something.
Yep. We'll get some sort of like notification set
alert.
Yes,
for the
yes.
next time. By the way,
Oh, speaking of which,
speaking of next time,
yeah.
JTV, tell them, let them know.
So, just so you guys know, our next podcast will officially be on Great Lakes Esports _LLC. That's where you can catch us moving forward. And I just want to say before we pass it back over to Bub, we also got to get Braves take real quick. And then we're going to be bringing in our special guest for the day, Luca, putting him on the hot seat and getting his take about this upcoming major. So, Bub, take it away.
Yeah, Great Lakes Esports, !main in chat, like JTV said. You can get a quick link. We just posted it in the chat a second ago. Go follow that channel. You'll catch more Lake Talk there as time goes along. But we are here
as well as exclusive content, other streams, more content about it, back end stories. That will be our main source of Great Lakes Esports. Everything the regions have to offer, you'll find it there. So if you enjoy what we do during competition day and you enjoy what we do, you enjoy the personalities we have, the casters, everything like that, make sure you hit that follow for Great Lakes Esports LLC, because we'll be doing a ton of exclusive content and additional content for everyone there.
Speaking of content, if anybody has any ideas for content, you can always mention something to us. We'll always note it down. We're one with you guys in the community. We're here because of you guys. So we owe it all back to you guys at the end of the day. So
yes,
we're gonna circle back on topic now. We kind of went off on a tangent there, but yeah, Brave. What's your opinion with trading?
Oh, like I said, I think Epic is making a huge mistake. First of all, they're really messing up the economy that was built in the Rocket League community. They're making everyone in the community really aggravated and mad. And why can't they just say to the companies that they know that's taken away the money from them, just say, hey, just give us some royalties, give us 5%, give us 10%. I don't care. Make all your trades you want. So many people use those different websites to get stuff that they want. Just let them trade. Let them do what they want. Just take your royalty. Just yes, you're the big man. Just say, I want my 5%. Be Uncle Sam. Just take it. We don't care, but let us have trading.
But is that enough? Is 5-10%? Is that gonna make up the difference?
100%. The amount I think so. The amount of tradings that happen per day on a basis, like even if they're making sense on it, that's more sense that they were going to be making. And like everyone says, small things add up. And if you're making 150 trades a day and say they're 50 cents each, I'm not going to try to do the math really quickly because I suck at math. But it racks up in a day, and then you times it over by a month. I mean, you're making money.
It's kind of like, I believe it's, and I apologize for my ignorance. It's like crypto trading, if I understand correctly. The people who host those servers, they get a cut from each transaction that happens on their host.
They make the trades. Like they have like I guess you can call them like quote unquote mules that have the items, and then they trade it away, but they get the money. They make a cut to them. So like the only thing they'd be adding is making a cut to Epic. See? I mean, it's not a crazy
not unheard of.
Yeah. So
with that being said, we need to take it on to our next segment, which is leading into our majors. We have 12 teams that have made it there, and I'm gonna list them off for you real quick, just so you guys can get in the action with us and understand where we're at and how we got to this point. So Columbia Navy coming in at first place right now with 53 points. Rochester, Siena Heights, Saints, and Oakland are tied respectively for second place with 35 points. However, it breaks down Rochester, Siena Heights, Saints, and then Oakland for second, third, fourth. In fifth place is Columbia Silver with 31 points, followed by Kansas Blue in sixth with 29. Indiana coming in at seventh with 27 points, and Davenport in eighth with 23. St. Clair Green declined their invitation because they have another event that they have to be a part of. So that being said, Michigan Mays taking ninth place with 21 points. Michigan State Green with 19 points, tied with Western Michigan as well at 19 points in 11th and 12th. And then the 13th team making it into the major and sneaking their way in is going to be Wichita State. So there's a lot of exciting things happening, a lot of great teams set to play forth. And right now, for me, it really comes down to the battle of Great Lakes against the Midwest, because this is the last time these teams will be facing off before they break apart and start to stand on their own prowess moving forward. And I'm going to actually pass it over to Brave real quick on this one. Brave, how are you feeling about these 12 teams, how we've gotten to this point? You like to have these bold predictions. You like to say things like, prove me wrong. And I'm waiting for some type of bold prediction real quick. So
you whipped it out.
Hey, merch available on GreatLakesEsports.org.
Let's go. We're like this from here on out. We're taking off the sweatshirt, guys. We are now in prove me wrong territory.
Yeah, merch. That shirt that JTV's rocking is available on our website down below. It is in chat now. So go look at different merch. We got some cool stuff in the merchandise shop.
The fish
go check
is
it out.
there. The fish is there. I can report.
Yes, the fish transition is there and hitting the ball. It's a nice sweater and different colors, different sizes, so anything will fit. But yes, my hashtag prove me wrong. Honestly, even in the blog that we wrote, that again is on the website in the blog section. I think the team to look out for, and I said it in the playoffs. I said Indiana Cream is going to be taking it. I think still Indiana Cream is going to be a team to watch out for pulling up into this major. I think they're going to be a team that's going to upset a lot of different teams. And I'm going to be really excited to watch their run. And then a team that's kind of coming from the lowers is, I think, a team that's a little bit underrated just because of some maybe backstories that I heard in private direct messages is they have a vengeance coming in. I think they're more than grateful that they got the last minute invite to be that I guess 12th place team, but technically the 14th place team to be making a run. But they look like they're going to be making a run. And then just a little shout out, just because I see him in chat here. I just want to say congratulations to Chippy for finally cracking that SSL mark. Big congratulations to you. I'm still trying to do it myself, but I think all of us here on the panel, congratulations on that feat. So yep, congratulations. Round of applause for you, Chippy. Good work. But that's my take. I think Cream is going to make it a good run. I don't think they're going to take it all, but I think they're going to make an excellent run. I think they're going to put themselves into a really, really good position going forward into the spring semester.
All right, and with that being said, I'm going to kick it in reverse. I was going to kick it over to Bub, but he's give me a second, Mark.
I need a second. I got a hot take coming. Hopefully,
Bub knew I was heading his way. Bub knew I was sending it to him, and he was like, I got to get it ready. Just like prove me wrong, he's got to be ready.
Speaking of Chippy, I think Indiana Tech is winning that major. They're 100% going to come through a perfect run. Cam, don't worry about it. They didn't even qualify. Doesn't matter. Give them one chance. They're going to take it all. No, honestly. We'll see you guys next semester. I think Indiana Tech will be a fun team to watch for. But meme aside, I saw the jersey behind me. I had to. I couldn't resist.
I was like, dude, they're not even.
I don't care. Hey, listen,
I didn't double check the top 12. Like, wait a second, they're not even the top 16.
I know they're there. Prove me wrong. No, actually, you will prove me wrong.
You're proved wrong right there.
Hey, listen here.
We're just gonna start up the stream. We're like, all right, ladies and gentlemen, so Bub is wrong.
Yes, that's a fantastic. Hey, I've said for a long time my job is to make an absolute fool out of myself for entertainment. I still hold true to it this day.
The only people that will know what we mean by "and Bub is wrong" are the people that have tuned in today and listened to the Lake Talk podcast, the exclusives.
Yes. Chippy out here saying he won't stop till he lifts that trophy. I like that energy. I like that energy. But yeah, back to the major. I think I'm going to... The boring answer is to say the team to beat is Columbia, and I think you've got a really tight race there between K-Blue, Columbia Silver, Oakland, Siena Heights, and Rochester, all for that second place spot. I think all those teams are incredibly close. I think Indiana, like Braves said, they're definitely poised to gain some ground. Wichita State, the same. I even think Michigan State is going to come through and surprise some people. Three teams really I'm most interested in just seeing how they perform in this environment is Western Michigan with J-Bar. We saw bits and pieces of him in Fall Minor 2. They are they're coming back from last year with a different roster. Michigan Mays, I'd like to see a little bit more consistency out of them. And Davenport, they've been the epitome of consistency. They've got 6 points both
Bob,
times.
I got a question for you. Would you
What's
say
up?
that Davenport might be equivalent to like Purdue of last year? They're kind of that like notorious underdog that kind of just stays alive, fights, and stays middle of the road, and sometimes peeks ahead.
I think Purdue last year was placing higher than Davenport has this year, but I could see that parallel being drawn. Absolutely, Davenport I think is consistently there, and I think they have a really, really good shot at making it to land at the end of the year. But I want to see them take that next step, man. They if they really want to, I'm not saying they're irrelevant because they are a top 16 team here, and this is not an easy league to play in. Ask any of the players, including one that we'll be talking to here in a little bit. But it's at some point you have to take that next step, and I'm curious when we'll see I don't think it's if. I think it's when Davenport takes that next step, whether it's here in about a week's time or if it's a month or so removed from where we are today.
And with that being said, let's get a little bit of feedback here from Zenzer. We'll get his take, we'll get my take, and then once again, like we said, we have our special guest waiting, rocking around, rattling his brain at the moment. Luke will be giving us his hot take before we send it on out for the night.
And I'm excited for that hot take. But first, I will say, you guys already know the team I'm going to say to kind of look out for from those middle teams is Indiana. You guys already know I was going to say it. I longtime IU fan, born in Indiana. And, I think they're a very strong team. Saw some really, really great things from them. Have to agree, Columbia Navy, obviously that team to beat. I don't think there's really any question about that as of right now. But I really expect to see, specifically Rochester and Oakland both, coming for blood here in this major, because not only how the most recent, season or split just went, but how the most recent fall minor went. Rochester not making it as projected, getting upset in that first round, having a little bit tough of a season on top of that. I think that we're really going to see them, coming for blood. And it's going to be a battle at the top because Oakland kind of in a similar position. And then we know Siena Heights, very, very strong team as well. And yeah, I have to agree as well on the Western Michigan Gold. I think that's a sleeper squad, 100%. But yeah, I'm just excited to be here for it. And, I think we're going to have an amazing major, and I can't wait for it.
Absolutely. And there's a lot going on, a lot happening, and I still have yet to give my take. So with that being said, I will say on the top end, if we're looking at the top part of the bracket right now, we're kind of looking at the teams that have placed where they are. I'm honestly really looking forward to seeing if Rochester can break through and be that team that they were last year, be that team that consistently stayed on top, consistently held it down here at Great Lakes. And if they can flip the script one time, because like I said, before we got into this, it really comes down to Great Lakes against Midwest right now. Which team, which region will be that region that is kind of the number one region going into the second half of the season? Because that's really what it comes down to. Aside from that, I have a lot of promise and good hope to see what Kansas Blue does. I'm sorry if I'm not on the same bandwagon with you guys as Indiana Cream, but Kansas Blue I have some high hopes for there.
Jar will be happy.
But if I had a sleeper team that I really like, that I think could potentially place in the top 4, if they keep their head on, if they continue to play that level of Rock League that I know I've seen them play in the past, and if Gengar can hit shots in his own goal, I mean, I'm telling you, Western Michigan Gold is a team to watch right now. So there's a lot going on right now. There's a lot of good teams. There's a lot to be seen, and we're still just a couple weeks away from that major. But the fun part is we got a special guest here today. You've heard my take. You've heard Brave. You've heard Bub. You've heard Zen Zero. But we have not yet heard from Luca. So, Luca, we're going to bring you on in here. And I just kind of want to get some feedback from you. How do you feel about this season in its current stance? And what do you feel about your current stance going into this upcoming major? How are you feeling about everything?
For us, this has not been too great of a season, I won't lie. We had our ups and downs, starting off all right, I would say. But halfway through the season, we started going through some issues, and we're currently like in the process of trying to figure it out. So I'm not too confident going into the fall major, because I don't even know who we're fielding for it. But it's pretty rough. Brave knows. Yeah, but I mean, in terms of who I do see doing well, or I can see doing well, I think Davenport is pretty decent for an underdog, or maybe even Oakland.
Can I pause you for a second? Hold on, because you said something in particular that stood out to me.
Yeah.
And before you move too forward,
I'll go
you
for it.
said, wait, did he just say that Rochester University does not know who you're fielding?
That's what he said.
That you don't know who you're fielding.
That does sound correct.
So the trio might not be the trio going into this major?
I'd say it's more
you don't
likely.
got to give us too much information. You just said some words that stuck out to me like a knife, just diving in deep right now. So I'm curious.
It's more likely than not that the trio will not be the trio playing in the fall major.
Well, that's a hot take in itself. Yeah, that's a hot take in itself.
Yeah,
but
big bombshell on you guys.
continue with the rest of your hot take, please. Woo!
Yeah, I mean, my hot take at Davenport, I could see Davenport, Oakland doing well. ITU, they did pretty well at the recent WACLAN that we were at. And, I mean, of course, Columbia. I think they're the favorites to win it all. I'm a big fan of them. They're great. One of the best teams in the West. Yeah, but I think Davenport's a pretty good underdog. Maybe my boy Caleb on Wichita State pulls something out and they go far. But yeah, I think it's probably gonna end up being Columbia.
Luke, I just want to take a moment. I see Chippy talking in the chat saying that Pops is going to be the MVP and he's going to solo GLCRL. I seem to remember last year we also saw Storm do
Stormy Warmy.
Something very, very similar. You calling a repeat here? Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't know, man. Pops had his moments. We just played that LAN with him, and he didn't do bad. He had like some games where he popped off. I let him do his thing. I sat back and played around him, and he played great. So if we do decide to field him, then I'm sure he's gonna be fine. I'll just do my best to cover him where we need to be covered, and let him do his crazy goals that he scores. He's pretty crazy.
Did have a crazy goal. I can vouch. There was
he had a few. He had a game where he dropped like 850 points and in a pretty important win. So
and also a game where he dropped 98. But we don't talk about.
Yeah, we don't talk about the bad parts. We don't talk about the part where we sold it.
Are you sure we don't talk about the bad parts? Because we're talking about clips right now, and we're talking about all this fun going on. And I think before we send it on out, I think we got some good information from everybody here on the panel. But before we send it on out for the night, I think we got a clip that you guys need to see real fast.
Oh, boy.
Michigan barely hanging on in this game to overtime. But they do have some reprieve for now. Cosmic Flippy doing his best to flip that towards that one, but not quite working out. Now Samba, great aerial from him, but immediately 50'd. Geske, a huge clear downfield. No hit from Gegard. No, that's a known goal. Oh no, disaster strikes for Michigan here in overtime.
And my goodness, I was just going to say, fantastic job of Samba, and it's something.
If I'm doing that, I'm not even mad.
That's like the worst psycho you could even ask for. That's just a redirect downward. That's horrible.
An absolute banger right there.
And that's literally Western Michigan Gold's first time coming back after being gone for the first minor, and then there was a first minor back, and he just gets a clip-worthy dunk on his own net. That's amazing.
Hey, listen, those we take those. But if those go in the other team's net, I've never done that before in my life. Definitely not. Luke has never seen me own goal once in my life, for sure. Hey, those go the other way. You never know. But
so I guess before we leave off, before we end, and Joseph takes it to the conclusion of this, Luca, do you have any anything that you want to say about any particular players before going in? So maybe not so kind words to somebody, or are you just going to keep it on the up and up?
And you got the wrong person for that. If you asked me like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I'd probably call someone out. But my boy Caleb, Real Kappa 12, is asking to get a shout out. But yeah, that guy sucks. He's gonna bomb out first round. No, I mean, I try to keep it peaceful. I don't like having beef with people anymore, and so I'm boring. I'm sorry.
Hey, honestly, sportsmanship is something I love to see. So with that being said, I want to thank you very much, Luca, for taking your time and being here as our special guest. Huge shout out to Brave, Bub, and Zen Zero for being on the panel. I'm Joseph the Voice, and this is Lake Talk, episode 1, dipping our toes in the pond. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, has a great night. And don't forget that our next podcast will be on Great Lakes Esports _LLC, and you can check out all the awesome action. Go and check out our website. Get some awesome merch, like prove me wrong, baby, because there's going to be some awesome things going on going forward, and you never know, we might throw some other cool things in the store as well. So happy holidays to all of you. Hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I also hope you all have a wonderful night.
Michigan barely hanging on in this game to overtime, but they do have some reprieve for now. Cosmic Flippy doing his best to flip that towards that one, but not quite working out. Now Samba, great aerial from him, but immediately 50'd. Geske, a huge clear downfield. No hit from Gedgar. No, that's an own goal. Oh no, disaster strikes for Michigan here in overtime.
And my goodness, I was just going to say, fantastic job of Samba, and it's something